Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans, and welcome back to an extremely exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast with me, your host Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good, as per usual. Before we get into today's topic, I want to do a bit of housekeeping. So make sure that you follow me at Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod to be kept up to date on everything and anything that I am doing. Also, if you listen to this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and all that jazz. And if you're not following me on YouTube, just go onto youtube.com, type in the Nerdstalgic podcast and subscribe. And also don't forget to ring the bell for notifications to be kept up to date whenever I release a new episode every Sunday. So, the reason why this is an extremely exciting episode, the reason why I'm so hyped, is because I get to dive back into Studio Ghibli. I get to go back in. And if you've listened to my Nausicaa episode, which you haven't, please do go back and check it out because I gushed over that movie. That movie is so gorgeous. And I will get into how much I gushed over it in a minute. But for anybody who wasn't in the know or who missed that one, basically this is going to be sort of a series where for the first time, because I am new to the Studio Ghibli movies, I haven't watched them all apart from Nausicaa and watching bits of Porco Rosso, but never watched the whole movie. I've decided to go back and to watch them all completely from the very first movie of Nausicaa all the way up to the most recent one, which was 2020, which was Earwig and the Witch. So I'm incredibly really excited for this. I can't wait to get into it. I can't wait to watch the movie that I'm going to talk about today. So I'm really, really excited. So the movie that I'll be reviewing today is the next movie in line. So you had from 1984, you had Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which was incredible. I loved it. It blew me away. And then a couple years later, the next movie they came out with in 1986 was Castle in the Sky, or as it was known in Japan, Laputa, Castle in the Sky. And it was called Castle in the Sky in the North America. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today. But before I get into that, I just want to talk about my experience and how much Nausicaa sort of affected me. So if you've listened to the episode, you'll know how much of that movie really sort of got to me, and I just loved it. I fell in love straight away with Ghibli movies, and I watched that movie twice. Not just because it's a 2-hour long movie, generally it's that I wanted to watch it twice, not just to kind of make sure I fully understood what I was seeing, but also the fact of just because I had an excuse to watch it again, really, because I just loved it that much. The soundtrack to that film, I found myself after doing the review, after recording it, I found myself just still listening to it. So whenever I'd come down to write notes for other podcast episodes, I'd sit and I want to listen to that soundtrack over and over again because we found it really calming, really relaxing. I just fell in love with that. I went on to Amazon and I looked for Nausicaa t-shirts. There weren't many actually, surprisingly, but I found a few and I have them on order, so they should be coming soon. As I was listening to the soundtrack, I ended up going through the comments, and this is the part which gets rather interesting. That some of you might find this rather funny. I find it funny because it's me, and I know what I'm like. When I get invested in something, when I fall in love with something, I 100% get invested. I have to read all the comics, all the books, watch all the films, all the TV shows, yada yada yada. Once I'm invested, I'm in. I'm in, which is kind of scary because, especially for my bank account, I have adult money and it tends to disappear very quickly. But as I was listening to the soundtrack, I started reading through the comments on YouTube, and just I was sort of connecting with people who would also watch this movie, and I would say it's my first time viewing, and just having quite chats and conversation. Anyway, as I've come down, there was one guy who wrote a huge paragraph about this movie and how the music felt to him, and then he basically spoke about how it upset him that some people would only ever experience the movie, and that they wouldn't never really experience the manga. And he went into detail basically how the manga was the original sort of idea and concept that Hayao butchering his name, Miyazaki. I'm really butchering the name, but that was his original sort of idea and concept for the story. Was a huge, ever expanding manga, which was like loads of volumes and loads of stories. Um, and I was like, well, I've got to check this out. So I'm currently in the look of going onto Amazon, and I managed to find a complete box set of the Nausicaa manga, um, all volumes for about 35 to 40 quid, which is not bad, not overly expensive. But it's surprising to me because one, I'm not. I've tried manga in the past. I couldn't get into it. My dyslexia does not allow me to. Because when I was growing up, to get me into really sort of being able to read books, I had it drilled into me of like, this is how you read a book. This is how, obviously sentence structure, and like when you had comic books, you kind of learnt from graphic novels of which way to read, speech bubbles and how it all works and that sort of thing. And it had it drilled into me. More so the books, not the comic books. The comic books I kind of did myself. And only to get manga where it's backwards. So you read from the back and you read the bubbles. I think it's right to left instead of left to right. So it's going to take a while for me to get into it. Haven't bought the manga as of yet, but I will. It's definitely one I want to do because the guy he wrote a full paragraph explaining like that was original idea and that's it. There's a lot more to it, and you get hints of what happened before and what happens after the movie ends, and there's just so much detail and rich. And again, like I said, I fell in love with that 2 hour long movie that I just had to. I wanted just to see what more I missed. I wanted to have more of this world and these characters. So yeah, it had a really lasting effect on me, that movie. Still does now. I still listen to the soundtrack here now and again whenever I want to sort of zen out or calm down or anything like that or relax, or when I'm just doing notes for a podcast. I will write. I will pull it on YouTube. I found one. It's only like 20 minutes long, but it feels a lot longer because the music is so rich and gorgeous and detailed. And if you've listened to the episode, you know how much I fell in love with that world and that music. And I went on to reams and reams and reams about the music, so you can probably understand how much it meant to me and how much it still means to me. But I just find it funny how like I just got addicted where I had to buy T-shirts and had to find. I tried to find posters and plushies, and I was like, no, I can't find no plushies. But there were posters, and I was looking into getting some T-shirts, and then I found the manga, and I was like, oh, well, I've got to get the manga now. I've got to read it. So I don't know when I will do it because it is like 40 quid. So it is a bit of an investment, especially for something that I might not enjoy. But I have so much love for Nausicaa that it's something to um, look into. So I just wanted to talk about that. I just wanted to talk about my experience with Nausicaa, how it had such an effect on me, and I thought that you lot would be interested in that. As for the development of this movie, I'm going to split it into sections. So I'm going to split it into the beginnings of Studio Ghibli because the Studio Ghibli really sort of started. This is where the company, the studio, was founded with this movie. And then there was going to be a trip to Wales, which links into this film, and then the production. So, starting off the beginnings of Studio Ghibli. So, following the commercial success of Miyazaki's previous film Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind from 1984, he was eager to begin work on an old-fashioned adventure film that would be a pleasure to watch, as he would say in quotes. Miyazaki's first proposal for an animated feature film was based on a research trip to Yanagawa, I think I'm pronouncing it, tentatively titled Blue Mountains. The film was never produced, but it inspired Miyazaki's longtime collaborator Isao Takahata. Again, if I'm butchering the names, I do apologize. To create the story of the Yamakata Canals in 1987, a documentary on the environmental effects of industry on the local waterways. Miyazaki was financing the project in large part through his personal office. Animage editor Toshio Suzuki recommended that he direct another film to recover the expense, to which Miyazaki immediately agreed. In 2014, Suzuki reflected on the event, saying if Takahata had made his movie on schedule, The Castle in the Sky wouldn't have been born. On June the 15th, 1985, Miyazaki and Takahata founded Studio Ghibli with support from Suzuki and his publishing company, Tokuma Shoten. Miyazaki chose the name himself, referencing both the Arabic term for a warm wind from the Sahara, as well as the name of an aircraft used by the Italian military during the Second World War. Animation writer Danny Calavaro notes that this choice is indicative of Miyazaki's love of both airplanes and Italy. The intent behind the creation of the studio was to blow a whirlwind into a stagnating Japanese animation industry by creating original, high-quality feature films. In a speech at the 1995 International Animation Film Festival, Suzuki said the idea was to dedicate full energy into each piece of work with sufficient budget and time, never compromising on the quality or content. So that's kind of the beginnings of Studio Ghibli. Now, the trip to Wales. Miyazaki first visited Wales on a research trip in 1985 when Laputa was in the beginning stages of production. He decided to take inspiration from the architecture of the region, as a result, some of the structures seen in the film resembles Welsh mining towns. Miyazaki also witnessed the coal miners' strike in protest of mines closed in the UK at the time. Their ultimate failure to preserve the industry left a lasting impact on Miyazaki, who viewed the event as an attack by those in power on the miners' way of life and the hard-working spirit of the people. His experience is reflected in several supporting characters in the film, who, despite labouring through poverty in the mines, enthusiastically protect the protagonist from multiple aggressors. Susan James Napier argues that this depiction reveals Miyazaki's yearning for a simpler way of life and a desire to create a story based on optimism. As animation scholar Helen McCarthy writes, it seems that Castle in the Sky also contains echoes of the struggle of the Welsh people for neighbourhood and freedom. Miyazaki would visit Wales once more in 1986, ahead of the release of the film. In 2005, he told The Guardian, "I admired those people. I admired the way they battled to save their way of life, just as the coal miners in Japan did. Many people, sorry, I've lost my point. Many people of my generation see the miners as a symbol, a dying breed of fighting men. Now they are gone." Right, so that is the trip to Wales. As for the production, there is Castle in the Sky has been critically acclaimed for its animation quality. Calavaro discusses the meticulous method of animating several distinct layers that the film employed, requiring significantly more labour before the use of digital tools, which he calls a valuable testimony to Studio Ghibli's invertebrate commitment. Certain special effects from the film also use a combination of cell and film technologies. Takahata, who produced the film, insisted that the highest quality be maintained in spite of the production expense. Napier argues that the production of Castle in the Sky established a new industry standard. Miyazaki states in the original project proposal that Castle in the Sky is a project to bring animation back to its roots. The film had a reported production budget of 5,000 yen. 500 million yen, at the time, equivalent to 3,000 or equivalent to 8 million in 2022. Several animation studios such as Doga Kobo and O Productions provided support for the in-between animation. Do apologise then, my phone went off and I had to edit it out and I got a bit messed up with my notes. But that is kind of the idea of the development, the beginning of Studio Ghibli, the trip to Wales that inspired sort of a lot of the things that you'd see in this movie, as well as the production. I'm not going to talk about the plot summary. I haven't read it, haven't looked at it at all, mainly because I want to go into this completely blind as I possibly can. That is my main goal. So I won't talk about the plot, but that is sort of the introduction. That is all I have to say now. I'm really, really looking forward to going into this movie. I'm sure it's going to blow me away. I'm sure I'm going to love it. This movie is actually longer than. Um, it's surprising. The movie is actually very much longer than Nausicaa. Nausicaa itself is only 117 minutes, around about 2 hours, and this is 124 minutes. By not by a lot, but it's longer. But I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it just as much. Like I said, I'm really really excited. I just can't wait to begin. So, without further ado, um, let's get into it. Right, Castle in the Sky, Studio Ghibli, movie two. Bosh, let's do it, shall we? So, I've just finished watching Castle in the Sky, which, by the way, I now after watching this movie, I generally think Laputa Castle in the Sky is a way better title than the North American one, which is just Castle in the Sky. Um, but I've now watched this movie. Well, technically, I've now watched it twice. Um, I basically realized after I finished the introduction, and I realized this with Nausicaa as well, because how long these movies are, there's no way that I could really properly, thoroughly break down and understand really a 2 hour long film by watching it once. It's something that you have to watch at least two, maybe even three times to really properly notice things that you didn't notice before when on the first viewing, and to really sort of get into the feel of what the movie is trying to be, what it's trying to do, the characters, and those fun little things. And as I noticed as well with Nausicaa, the little added details that you didn't notice the first time around, the way characters act, or how, for example, in this movie, you've got the Dola gang, and how that granny basically says to them that you want a girl like me, and that Sheeta is a girl like me, and you'll be lucky to have a girl like that. Which again, I only noticed this on the second viewing, was that they all started when they finally get Sheeta onto their ship, onto their pirate ship. They basically tried to woo her. They tried to all flirt with her and basically like, oh, I want to help you, and try to, she's just she just thinks they're helping, but they're being trying to woo her, and it realizes that they're all trying to do it at the same time, and they're all like, "Oh my god, you said you weren't going to," and it's a very very funny scene. I don't give it no justice whatsoever, but it was a little detail that I noticed on the second viewing from what Granny said to what happened later on in the story. So repeated viewing and seeing these movies more than once is definitely something that I'm going to have to do for the rest of these films, which is not something I've ever done before. I've watched other long movies, I've even watched other 2 hour long films, um, and I found myself being able to really sort of quantify and describe what it is I saw and what I felt. But with this series, because there's so much to it, because it's so nuanced and so arty, and so many different themes going on at different times, you do get the moments where you sit there and you goes, I'm gonna have to watch this again to really sort of understand what it is I have just witnessed. So but depending on how long the next movies are in the series, if they're all 2 hours, then I'll be watching them twice. Otherwise, I'll probably only just watch them once. But knowing me, I've loved my journey so far. I've loved all the movies I've seen, so I'm more than happily on my own, just wanted to watch them more than once anyway. So I just wanted to note that at the beginning of the review. As for the actual review itself, so the movie it's a fun epic adventure. It's akin to the likes of, say, if you've got Indiana Jones meets the Lost City of Atlantis, the Disney one. It's full of adventure. The characters are all very big and boisterous. The world, the lore, the characters are all vibrant and bright and full of life. I said this about Nausicaa, and it's the same thing here. They just express, they just emit a feeling of the world that's real, that's lived in. That each character has a story before the story began, and during the story, and after the story. All the characters are memorable. They all have this sense of realism, of you know because as I mentioned in introduction, like Miyazaki took inspiration from Wales, and straight away when I saw Patsu's village that he lives, it's really in the vein of the way Wales used to look and way mining towns used to look. Straight away, I had that feelings of like this feels very very English. This feels very British. I like it. You know, everything just feels organic. And again, I feel this is down to the art style as well, hand drawn animation. Something you just don't get nowadays with CGI. You make things look beautiful, you can make things look incredible, you can do wonderful things, you can do things that you possibly couldn't do before, you can go places you couldn't go before, all this jazz. Um, but with hand drawn animation, you just have the extra style of realism, of being able to really be impactful because a human drew it, actually spent the time hours and hours just drawing and texturing each sort of level, each sort of scene. That when you see it with your eyes in motion, you can just feel the love, you can feel the creativeness inside it. So um, that's for me is part of the creativeness, is part of the um, movie itself is just the beautiful art, and I will get on to that in a minute. But yeah, it just has a sense of feeling of Indiana Jones. You know, that adventure is there, that mystery, that wanting to find Laputa, wanting to find the treasures, wanting to realize the true the potential as to why this city is in the sky, where the people went, why people decided to basically abandon it, and why it's abandoned, and that sort of thing. And there's also the Atlantis part of it comes in of that of like Patsa who's trying to find it, he's trying to discover it. His father he saw it one day. Everybody saw that it told him he was a liar, and that the idea of being called a liar basically sent his father into an early grave and killed his father off. So Patsu has a lifelong sort of goal to like prove that Laputa is real and that his father was telling the truth, and that to bring back the riches and just to show the like bring back to the people really, and just not just he doesn't want the gold, he just wants to prove that it's real. And the adventures there and the if Milo from Atlantis really strings true here. And this was again 1986, you know, this is way before Atlantis and round about the time of Indiana Jones, but it just has that adventure kiddie epic sort of style to it. And I immensely fell in love with the characters and world straight away. The art style just pulled me in. And I was just on a train journey of epic proportion all the way through. But again, like the world and the lore, all real. I want to know more about this world. I want to know why we went from floating cities to then living back on the Earth, and why plane and aerial technology is starting again. Because it is very steampunky. You can tell that we're in the future. There's futuristic tech and weapons, but at the very much, it's kind of like we've devolved. It's kind of like something happened. Kind of like Nausicaa. We were at the pinnacle of technology, and then something happened, and now we're back to square one, and now we're starting all over again, and we pick up the story in that sort of ever evolving humanity getting back on its feet again. You know, so that lore, the world, the characters, everything is just there for the picking. And a part of me kind of hopes that there is and isn't a manga, because if there is, I'm going to have to buy it, which means I'm going to, because it's going to expand the lore. So I need to know more about this world, and that just shows the power of this story and this world that is being created here. That you want to get invested. You want not just in the adventure, but everything. You want to know everybody, every single character that you meet, every sort of bit of plot development or anything like that you want to know about. If you can hear that in the background, that's my dog playing with a chew toy. I do apologize if you can hear scratching running around in the background. But everything's just so powerful. It's just so lifting that the world is just alive, and I love it. And I'm just in awe, incredibly in awe. The music again, I always mention this, but the music is just as powerful as Nausicaa. But the movie is more light-hearted. You know, like where Nausicaa is very serious. Nausicaa is a story, not just about the environment, but about sort of being in harmony, and that trying to be in harmony with the earth and not destroying it any further. It has an it kind of in a way you could say it has an agenda, has a motive, it has a not light-hearted sort of point of like this is what the world would be like if we don't stop destroying it. And it has its light-hearted moments, but it is overall like an epic. It's more Nausicaa, after sort of reflection, listen to the music over and over again. To me, Nausicaa is like a operatic opera, operatic sort of epic movie. It's kind of like what you'd imagine that Fantasia is, for example, or what the Looney Tunes did, where they took opera music and they made sort of mini short Looney Tunes sort of movies out of it. It's kind of like that, where it's like somebody took some epic music and just tried to tell a story through that. That's how I sort of my overall sort of thought is of Nausicaa and the music and how it intertwines. Here in the Castle in the Sky, it's very much light-hearted. It's very powerful. It's mainly like for children, but it can still be epic. It's not like I'm not going to talk down to you. I'm not. I'm gonna come down to your level, and I'm going to give you an epic adventure, one that is going to blow you away. It's going to make you feel full of wonder and love and compassion, but also when it needs to be epic and it needs to be sort of powerful, which there are many moments in this movie where they are, where like you have the robot and Sheeta, and the robot comes to save her. And it's very like a King Kong sort of sort of moment, where the robot is trying to protect her, and the robot's only doing what it's programmed to do, so it's destroying everything. And she's like, "Stop! Stop! You're killing everybody! You're destroying everything! Please stop!" And the music is powerful and epic, and then you got the scenery, and it's just an orgasm of just in pure wow. Just that few inhuman arcane feeling of just, oh my god, I can't believe what I'm seeing, and my brain is just melting as I'm watching, and I'm in love. Um, I love this movie. I do so much. I'm sure I'm going to love all the movies, and this is something that you're going to hear all the way through this series, through all the movies. I'm sure I'm going to love them all. Um, but this movie, I just love it. It's light-hearted, it's fun, it's an adventure. Indiana Jones meets Atlantis. I never knew I needed it, never knew I wanted it, but here it is, and I'm glad I've got it, and I'm glad it exists. Again, can't believe 1986. Sadly, I don't have my computer with me at the moment, so I can't Google what animated movies were being made in 1986. But I don't believe they're probably as powerful as this movie. Probably not as long either. I recently watched The Land Before Time, and I remember that movie being a lot longer when I was a kid. Um, that movie is a lot shorter, still very very powerful, and the story, there are a lot of in sort of inconsistencies and inaccuracies with dinosaurs and the way dinosaurs look, but again, we can't judge it. We have to judge it on the time frame, not on what the knowledge that we know now in dinosaurs. But again, nothing compared to what Ghibli was doing, in my opinion. Actually, I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna Google it after I do the review, and I'm gonna look up for myself, just to see what movies were coming out in 1986, just to kind of give my own gauge of like if they was epic. I don't feel like they were, but we'll see, or I will see. Um, as for the sort of the characters, we've got Patsu, which I feel like I'm butchering the name. But Patsu is an orphan, but he's very brave, very determined. As I mentioned, his main goal is to kind of he works in the mines in this little town. He's an orphan, so the whole town is like his family. All his friends, they kind of look after him. He lives on his own, and he's basically working the mines to raise some money so that he can finish off his flying machine to basically go off and find Laputa, to finish off his dad's work, to finish off his dad's quest, to prove that not only that the city exists, but his dad wasn't crazy and his dad wasn't lying. And then he meets Sheeta, and his whole world is sort of flipped upside down. And like for a 13-year-old boy, he's incredibly brave, incredibly determined, incredibly loyal to a fault. With Sheeta, like when he meets her, I don't think you could say that he falls in love with her, but after watching this movie twice, I wouldn't say that he is I would say that he loves her, but I wouldn't say it's a romance. I would say that it's a kindred spirits, that they're both orphans, that they both have no home, so they have each other. And it's that friendly bond. It's that sort of friendship, sort of. There doesn't need to be an overtones of a relationship where like Disney or Pixar would try to, or even other sort of DreamWorks would try to like shoehorn in a romance. With these two, there's love there, and you can sense that love, and you can see that love, but it's not romantic love. It's friendship love. It's a bond. It's a connection that only best friends would ever really truly understand, you know. And he even says like, "She's my world. She's all I have," and it's true. You know, he's all, she is all sort of he has. She's proof, not just to him, but also to the world, that Laputa is real. He, you know, and that his dad wasn't crazy. Also, they're both sort of orphans. They both don't really have anybody left, you know, so they both need each other. So yeah, she is his world, and he's hers really, and it's quite beautiful. Um, Again, as Ashita, she's also very, very strong character. She holds a lot of great power and magic, but she's not aware of it. There is magic in this movie. Now, is it magic or is it like a technology that we can't understand? Because that's what I'm sure there is a quote out there basically that technology we don't understand always comes off as magic. You know, is always conveyed as some sort of sorcery because we can't comprehend it, we can't understand how it works, so it seems magical to us. Um, so is it magic? Is it not? I don't know. I like to think it is magic, and that this stone that she has, this talisman, protects her. So if she's ever in danger, if she's ever in need of help, um, it will either come to life on its own and protect her and save her, or save those that are around her, or if she has spells, she can then use them to for good or for bad. And there is a line in this that I love, and it basically goes, and it really made me really reevaluate the idea and concept of magic and learning magic. It was the idea of her grandmother taught her the spells and taught her the magic, but in order to understand and appreciate the good magic and to make the good magic work, she also needed to know the bad magic. She had to understand the wicked to understand the beautiful. You know, and I thought that was incredibly powerful and really beautiful piece of quote, you know, bit of scripture there. How um, to understand the beauty and understand the good that can be done with this power, you have to understand that if you misuse it, this is the bad things that can happen. These are the bad spells. You should never use these spells, but these are the spells that led to maybe even the downfall of Laputa and its people as to why they left the city. It's never really said, but again, you could interpret it like that because you never really get an answer as to why the city was abandoned. You know, I did a bit of a Google after I watched the movie, before I actually did this review, actually, before I actually started recording this. And all I could really find was just people's interpretations, and that the idea was that kind of like Atlantis, but a little bit different, where the people basically realized that they wanted to get back to their roots, that they had got too powerful with their technology, and that they were unhinged, they were unconnected to nature, and that they wanted to get back to nature. So they abandoned the city and they just left the city in the sky. And nature being nature, that if you leave nature to do its thing, that nature will take back what you it will claim back what you took from it. So the stone to make your buildings, the sort of minerals to make roads and pavements and glass and that sort of thing, all the minerals, the earth and nature will take those back and seep them back into the earth to be used once more. And that's what happened to the city. So when you find the city, it's gorgeous, it's grand, it's beautiful, it's got a giant tree growing out of it. There's life, there's animals, birds, little fox things living about in this little ecosystem, this little bubble. The roots are incredibly deep, and they're groups of grown and entwined in the city. Um, I'll get into talking about the city in a minute, but it's so grand, so beautiful. One more character that I wanted to mention because I love her, she's incredible. Is Grandma Dola. She's a pirate. She's absolutely badass old lady. She's incredible. She's got her sons who are very, very silly, quite stupid, not very brightest bulbs, but again, she loves them. And like the story really begins with like it makes you kind of think that these pirates are bad, are evil, are basically pirates are cruel, mean, sort of the enemies. And then you slowly get to know them as Sheeta and Patsa get to know them, and straight away you're like, these people are pretty good. You know, yeah, they're pirates, but they don't hide it. Like, yeah, we're pirates, but we're not evil. We just want treasure. That's it. We don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to kill anybody if we don't have to. We just want treasure. That is our goal as pirates, is to sail around in our little airship, find treasure, and get rich. That's it. You know, and I like that. You know, there's no sort of hidden agenda or anything like that. Sort of like Treasure Island sort of thing. It's generally like, yeah, we're pirates, but we're good people. We just like gold. It's as simple as that, and I love it. You know, but it's not just sort of Grandpa Doll. It's not just um, Sheeta. It's not just Patsu. It's all the characters, every single character that you meet in this story, whether it's got a big part to play or a little part to play, all are incredible. You know, from you really and you remember them from Boss. He's a character you only meet a bit when you first meet Patsa, and there's a little fight when the Dola gang come into town, and really badass and have these like anime moments where they get and they really sort of swole up and they're like flex their muscles and their shirts rip open and they try to have like a show, look, I'm harder than you, and like they punch each other in the stomach and you can tell it really hurting. They got sweat going down but they got to try and be hard and you know, again, it's a very memorable moment. You know, he Boss doesn't he only his name is Boss, he doesn't say a lot, but his character is memorable. Or Uncle Pom, again, another memorable character. Less, I'd say less, probably less screen time than Boss, but you remember him. You know, he's an old man that lives in the mines underneath the city, or the abandoned mines, and he's really in touch with nature, and he listens to the stone, and the stone talks to him. Yes, he's lost a bit of his marbles, but he is in tune with nature. He's in tune with the world, with the stone. The stones talk to him, and he proves it to Sheeta and Patsa. Like he turns the light off and he just says, "Listen, listen to the stone." And eventually, once it all goes quiet and it goes dark, the stones come to life and they start to glow. And he shows that the true beauty of the earth. All you've got to do is listen to it. You know, it's beautiful and it's a very memorable moment. Very memorable character. Um, and yeah, there's all of them are um, sort of memorable. Even the robot, again, you know, you get a few different robots, all the same sort of type of robot, but different robots. All have obviously their own personality. None of them talk at all, but you can tell what each one's been through. You can tell who each robot is. You know, there's only two robots that you properly meet in this film, but you can understand their motives without any speech. It's just from what their actions and how they act and how they look. You can just tell what kind of personality they have. Yeah, it's just wonderful. It's just incredible. Again, they don't much get screen time, but you remember them. How much can you say about that? Where like you watch a movie, animated or not, um, and you remember the background characters. You remember characters you don't even spend that much time about. How many movies can you say about that, animated or not? You know, I can't think of many. You know, unless you have movies that are made to be like that, kind of like a Wes Anderson or Tarantino sort of film, where every little detail matters and every character and everything that each character says and does matters. I don't really remember where you remember much of the side characters apart from, oh, that character was funny or that character looked funny or so on and so forth. You know, and it's incredible. Wow, blows me away. Um, as for Laputa, it's just gorgeous. As I mentioned, the whole city in the sky idea is, or castle in the sky, gorgeous. It's beautiful. Like, I was in awe when I first saw it when it was first properly revealed. Um, you know it. How can I explain it? Um, Everything was just frame for frame, like Nausicaa, and again, hand drawn animation. Again, every single frame was art. The whole movie is artful. and that I could literally break down many scenes and be like, "Yep, freeze frame. That's a poster. That's the front cover. There's your trailer poster. That's the front cover of the DVD. That's the poster goes on my wall." Each frame, both beautiful, beautiful animation, and I just love a poster of Laputa just as it is in its glory on my wall. I just need it because it looks gorgeous. It's wonderfully designed and great. So the idea and concept of the whole idea is just blows me away. Anyway, it's beautiful. But again, as I mentioned, hand-drawn animation, it it will forever be timeless. It will live on forever because love and compassion went into it. That's what CGI is missing nowadays. It's missing the compassion. Now, I'm not saying that animated movies nowadays with CGI and 3D graphics, I'm not saying they're not good. They are good. They're incredible at times. But I just feel like for me personally, the reason why hand-drawn animation just works so much better in pulling me into the story is because I can just tell that somebody, a whole team of people, sat down for hours on end, coloring, drawing, animating, frame by frame, make sure everything that you see on the screen is necessary. There's no fluff, there's no guff, there's no trying to add things just because we can, because it's easy and all you got to do is drag and drop. None of that. Everything that you see is necessarily aesthetically pleasing to the eye and is meant to be there, right? And it just bolsters what's there. It's art. It's gorgeous. It is timeless, and it always will be. This art form, hand-drawn animation, it needs a comeback. It needs a renaissance. There needs to be a studio out there somewhere. I know Ghibli does it, but there needs to be a studio out there who brings back modern hand-drawn animated movies, brings back that style. Because again, I would imagine Ghibli still do it with a lot of their movies. Again, I don't know. Hopefully, I'm right in this assumption. But if they do still do hand-drawn animation and they're still around today and people still love them, it just shows there's an audience for hand-drawn animation and it can be done well and to a extremely high standard. So just because 3D animation is easier doesn't mean that's the option you should always take. Sometimes a little bit of difficulty and a little bit of extra time and care that goes into something gives you more practice in the end run, that actually shows that I actually put my work into it. I put my heart and soul into it. It was difficult, but I found a way around it. I managed to work my way through it. And the end result is something that is and could be considered a masterpiece and just gorgeous. And I just feel like that's what modern animation is really missing nowadays, is just that extra level of love and passion in these sort of movies because they're not being drawn by hand. Sorry, I went a bit of a TED Talk rant about that, but I think I did with Nausicaa as well. But I just find this animation style so aesthetically pleasing. It just these movies. What I found by Ghibli films so far is that aesthetically they're just so appeasing to my autistic brain that I just instantly melt. That I don't even know what it's about yet. I haven't even watched it, but straight away, it's like watching when I first started watching the Wes Anderson movies because they're done in such an aesthetically pleasing way that I just fell in love with the world, with the characters and everything because I was just enthralled of what I was seeing because I've never seen cinema like that before. And it was the same growing up watching hand drawn animation. It was appeasing to me. Yes, again, I grew up with sort of the rise of 3D animation, and I always love it, and I always will love 3D animation. But hand drawn will always have a special place in my heart because how aesthetically pleasing it is to the eye, for me and for obviously many other people as well. You know, um, moving on quickly, otherwise I'll be here all day talking about animation. The environmental message, it's still here, it's still powerful, it still resonates. And there were two quotes in this movie that I pulled out that really wrap up that message perfectly. So the first quote, it's a short one, but we'll try and break it down. Is the earth has music for those who listen. I'll repeat that for you, right? The earth has music for those who listen. I think Uncle Pom said this in the film, um, but what a beautiful quote, and it's true. If you ever take the time to put your phone down and to get away from technology, to sit in your garden, or to go for a walk in the woods, or to go to the countryside, or just to get away from cities, get away from cars, get away from technology, just to kind of go somewhere where there is life, right? And then just stand or sit and listen. So all you gotta do, open your you can even close your eyes and turn up your volume in your ears, right? And just listen. And you'd be amazed at the things that you can hear that your brain automatically blocks out because you're not focusing on them. But when there's nothing going on around you, your human element, sort of the human ape, the human animal, basically, the human creature, wakes up. The natural sort of humanic part of the brain opens up, and you can hear the earth sing. You can hear it talk to you. You can hear it in the wind. You can hear it in the birds. You can hear it in the grass. You can hear it in the rustling of leaves. You can hear it in the bees and other insects that are flying around you. If you get down to the earth, and again, it might sound crazy to some people, but I've already made it obvious that I'm a very spiritual person, so this is normal for me. But even if you was to get down and just to lie down on the grass and then just to look and kind of get a perspective of an ant's perspective, and you was to look through the grass, kind of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, that sort of thing, or you just to listen to the ground and you listen to the grass as the wind blows and that sort of thing, and just to watch the life around you. The earth is constantly talking to you. The earth is constantly speaking to you. The stones, the fire, the wind, the water, everything is talking to you. You just have to switch off and listen. And humans, we have lost touch with nature. There's not many people in the world who still are in touch with nature. There's not many tribes. There's not many um, cultures that are still in tune with nature. And those that are, you'll find they're a lot more spiritual and open because they understand their place. You know, Western cultures, Western societies, very much have that sort of idea and concept that your purpose in life is to work until that you are dead. Is that your purpose is to contribute to the overall society, and that's it, and done, right? Whereas a lot of um, other sort of cultures that are not in the West, in the East, and a lot of tribes, their idea and concept of what life is and what life means is just to be in tune with nature, to be as the butterfly, to be as the flower, to be here, to be beautiful, to be strange, and then to go. And that's wonderful, you know. So the idea of listening to nature and to really sort of switching off and just take it all in is a beautiful message. And this being a kids movie and to get in that idea into kids' minds at a young age is fantastic. To show them that to not just to look after the environment, but just to put technology down, to put that to the wayside, pick up a book, or not even a book, just go outside, touch grass, listen, hug a tree, feel life, feel alive. You know, it's a wonderful message, right? Also, second quote, I like this one. This one's a bit longer, but also this one has a huge resonance as well. It goes, no matter how many weapons you have, no matter how great your technology might be, the world cannot live without love. I'll repeat myself one more time, right? No matter how many weapons you have, no matter how great your technology might be, the world cannot live without love. Because love is beautiful. Love is all around us. You know, love is everywhere. You know, I was made for loving you, baby. You were made for loving me. You know, love is powerful. It's a drug. It's kind of things. It's what humanity chase after. Love in family, love in friends, loving each other, loving a partner, loving animals, loving nature. You know, like no matter how great technology might be, phones, TVs, um, cars, planes, you know, anything like that, any sort of technology, how great and powerful that might be, um, without having a human connection, without love, without having someone to talk to, what is the point? What's the point of having all this technology if you don't love each other? If there's not that connectiveness in the world? It's the same with weapons. Yeah, it's all well and good having the biggest gun, but if we kill each other, then what? We've destroyed ourselves. The planet will live on. The planet will heal, and the animals will come back, and the world will move on without us, like we weren't even here. Um, but again, um, if we destroy ourselves with our weapons, then the love is gone because the human love and the love we have for each other. So a world without love is not a world that I want to live in. So two big things to take away really is to touch grass, to get out, to listen to the world, listen to the trees, embrace it, take it in, live a life that is worth living as long as it's in tune and connected to the world and to nature, and to be grounded, you know, and love yourself, love each other, have a world of love, and just take time to put the technology away. I'm asking you, you know after you listen to this podcast, switch off, turn your phone off, turn your TV off, your Xbox, or your computer, or whatever it is you listen to this podcast on right now. Or if you're driving, pull over, you know just sit, turn the engine off, go outside, put the window down, listen, take it all in. um, And you'll probably find that there were things that you didn't hear, that you've always heard, but you didn't notice before. And you might see how beautiful this world really, really is. That no matter how dark and decrepit and sad and cruel the world might seem at times, that the world itself, the planet, is beautiful. There's beauty, and there is peacefulness and calm all around us. We just need to know how to tap in it and find it, you know. Um, so that environmental message is still there. It's incredibly powerful. Um, and again, I already know a lot of these messages, a lot of all these things that it's trying to tell me. Again, these are my interpretations of these quotes anyway. But it's nice to have them reinforced. It's nice to have them sort of fed to me and sort of pushed back into me. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I really sort of taken what's trying to be said here, but also kids, the next generation, learning these messages, learning these sort of um, foundations of life. Fantastic, absolutely incredible. I'm glad that all these movies have an environmental message to them. It just makes me love them more because we need that, especially nowadays with like heat waves in Europe and like the planet's on fire. You know, we need to learn all about nature and how to quickly basically protect it and put the fire out and to save ourselves and to save the planet. You know, um, so yeah, so that's all my notes, really. Overall, I love this film. I do, which is obvious. I knew I was going to. I had no doubts whatsoever. I watched it twice. I will happily watch it again. Um, More than likely, I will end up sitting and listening to the soundtrack like I did for Nausicaa. I still listen to that, whenever I need to. I still put that on. So I had no doubt I wasn't going to love it. If you haven't seen this movie, like if you're a fan of Ghibli and this is one of those that you haven't seen, or if you're like me and you're a newbie and you're watching them as I watch them, and you haven't gotten to this one yet, definitely you'll love it. It's an incredible film, um, and yeah, I'm just happy. I am. I'm just in a fantastic mood. I just feel great. I just feel so great. This movie's put me in a good mood. That's what you want at the end of the day. You want to watch a movie where you're like, you know what? Yeah, it was 2 hours, but I'll watch that again. That's good. You know? And that says somebody who's got the extended versions of all the Lord of the Rings movies, who will happily, no matter what time of day it is, put those on and watch them to completion. And if there is loads of time in the day, I'll happily watch all three extended movies. And that's like, I don't know how many hours. I want to say 9, but I feel like it's longer. You know what I mean? So I don't mind a long movie as long as it pulls me in and sort of takes me along for the ride. I'll happily just ride that train for however long it needs to go on for. Um, so yeah, so that has been my review of Castle in the Sky, or as I would rather sort of see it as its original title, which is Laputa, Castle in the Sky, because it sounds so much better and it makes way more sense as to when you watch the movie as well. Um, I hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this podcast or you liked this review, you can find the Nerdstalgic podcast basically anywhere and everywhere that you find podcasts nowadays. The only place you won't find me is on Apple Podcasts. But if you go onto Google and you just type in the Nerdstalgic podcast, they'll give you a long list of all the places you can find me. I'm on Audible. I'm on YouTube. If you are listening to this on YouTube, again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I want to hear what you think about this movie and other Studio Ghibli films. I'm so interested in the dialogue and having a conversation with people about these movies. So please, if you have something to say or any sort of feedback whatsoever, please put it down in the notifications below. Also, don't forget to ring the bell if you have subscribed so you can stay up to date on anything that I post on there. Also, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to give me a star rating, 1 to 5 stars. 5 stars, best thing you heard in your life. 1 star, I'm talking complete rubbish and you disagree with me completely. Again, whatever you feel like is fair, please do let me know. And yeah, so I have been your host, Luke the Human. You've been listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye, guys.